Omori's combat system is super interesting in my opinion. Unlike other JRPGs, the combat is fast-paced and snappy. I had a really fun time learning what does and doesn't work in battle. As somebody who's 100% multiple playthroughs, and has an 100% Steam achievements page, I thought I could show people how to get a little better at combat, and really enjoy the system to its fullest. So in this video, I'm going to go over what skills are good, what skills aren't good, and any other quirks that will lead you to success. I'll start by doing a brief overview of the emotion system, followed by breaking down every character's skills. If you're used to classic JRPGs, emotions serve as both your status effects and elemental types. Happy beats angry, angry beats sad, and sad beats happy. Any enemy and party member can have emotions applied to them. This will alter fundamental elements about your team composition. Knowing which emotions to apply where are crucial for defeating a boss quickly or not dying against a brutal attack. There are 3-ish emotions, and they all have 3 stages. Only Omori, your opponents, and Basil and the Switch exclusive stuff, which we will not be covering, can reach the level 3 emotions of Manic, Miserable, and Furious. Kel, Hero, and Aubrey are locked out of this state. Happy will drop your hit rate while increasing your luck and speed. The different values, as provided by the Omori wiki, will be on screen. Sad will increase your defense, drop your speed, and convert a percentage of damage taken into juice taken. Very quick side tangent, but enemies don't really have juice. They have a juice stat, but they'll never be able to use the juice stat. Angry will increase your attack while dropping your defense. Our 4th and more iffy emotion is Afraid. The party can't inflict Afraid, only black space enemies, Creepypasta, Hush Puppy, and the spiders for Hero apply it. While Afraid, you cannot use follow-ups or skills, and will take increased damage from all foes with emotion. Afraid does have a higher stage called Stressed Out, but that's only usable in scripted bosses. The next question would then be, how do you utilize these emotions more effectively? Well, you could just slap any emotion on any character for no reason. Effectively utilizing it is crucial for certain fights. Let's learn how all our party members play. You can fit each of the Omori gang into an RPG archetype fairly cleanly. Aubrey is the fighter, Kel is the rogue, Hero is the cleric, and Omori is the mage. Well, Omori is kind of the mage. While yes, Omori does have the high damage, high MP moves of a mage, Omori stands out as being super well rounded. Because of plot armor and no magic stat in the game, Omori is consistently one of your best party members. He doesn't have any single best stat of the whole party, but he doesn't have a worst stat of the whole party either. All of Omori's skills cost a lot of juice and work best if he has an emotion or an enemy has an emotion. To rate these skills, I will give them a score out of 5 stars. The higher the star count, the more powerful and versatile a move is. Moves with a red hand icon next to it are exclusive to the Hiki route, and moves with a blue melon icon are found from NPCs and weapons. Let's now run through Omori's kit. Guard is a skill that all characters have. It's a move with high priority and it reduces damage by 50% for the sole turn it was used. Personally, I don't find myself using Guard a whole lot, even when I'm running a super tanky build. All moves have an opportunity cost for using them, and when you only have 4 options at a given time, wasting one for absorbing a blow that might not even hit you is unoptimal. Doing almost any skill, or a neutral attack plus a follow-up is more advantageous for you. Use this until you have 4 moves that aren't Guard and then get rid of it. Despite being your first real skill, I'd argue that Sad Poem is one of the best Omori has. Sad is quite a rare emotion to apply without items. Even though it's arguably the worst one to put on opponents, applying it to Omori himself will allow him to absorb hits much better. Sometimes enemies can screw with your emotions or their emotions, and having a tool to react to an opponent randomly becoming happy is useful. Stab is interesting in terms of use. It costs 13 juice for a move that always crits. The fact that it always crits is a bit misleading, especially if you're used to Pokemon. The only thing crits do in Omori is give you 50% more damage. The base attack for Stab, however, is 1.5 times. Doing the math, Stab will now deal 2.2 times 5 damage if you're just throwing it out there. This is where Omori's ability to use emotions comes in. When sad, Stab will ignore defense and increase its power to 2x base damage. Combined with the guaranteed crit, this will make Stab deal 3 times your attack while ignoring defense. It's definitely outclassed by much later stuff in the game, but if you're going for a sad tanky build, Stab is a reliable damage option throughout your whole playthrough. Observe is a very strange skill. It's entirely missable just by avoiding Sean and Ranwell in the vast forest, and for most uses it's really bad. However, you've probably seen some glitch videos going around on this thing. Observe lets you cheese Perfect Heart? How? Observe will have Omori waste his turn to show who will be the targeted next person. How the game does this is very strange though. The enemy is forced to choose their next attack as though it was their next turn, which makes sense, but the selection pool of moves is arbitrarily limited. They get one spread damage move and one single target move. So if you, say, observe an enemy that has a move that doesn't do damage, like Sweetheart's Annoying Laugh or Perfect Heart's Healing, you can just outright prevent those moves from occurring. TLDW, don't use observe unless your opponent has a really annoying status move. I'm pretty sure this skill exists because the name is funny. And like the name being a joke, I think Bread Slice is kind of a joke in battle. The move will deal 2.5 times damage for 10 juice. The main upside aside from the slight increase in power is that bread will drop from a defeated enemy. Bread heals 60 HP, so this item is pretty decent until about Firefly Forest. Now, this sounds alright, but when returning to opportunity cost, there's not really a place to use it. If you really need the extra damage, and I mean like really, then sure, whatever. But Mock and Hackaway, much better skills, are right around the corner. It is quite funny to kill a boss with it though, so if you do have the room to flex, I guess why not? Mock, Trick, and Shun are all in the same family of moves pretty much. They will all do 3 times damage to an enemy and then drop a stat by 2 stages if the foe is the corresponding emotion. In Mock's case, it will greatly drop the enemy's attack. This serves as a great counter to both Space Ex-Boyfriend and the Slime Girls, as their most threatening attribute is their high spread damage. It's an okay tool at killing random enemies, but where it shines is the boss fights. Hackaway will have Omori attack 3 times. If there are multiple enemies, each of the attacks can hit a different one. Oddly unmentioned by the game description, Hackaway will actually receive a very slight power buff when Omori is angry. While on paper all these attributes sound really good, it has a lot of little things that hold it back from being a great skill. Personally, I don't think Omori works really well as an angry character. I much prefer utilizing his bulk instead of his attack. The juice cost of 30 is also quite high for where you get it in the game. It's definitely not bad by any sense of the word. It's just kind of placed oddly in the story, I think, and has a bunch of little things that really make it harder to use. It's quite a great option against solo bosses, but you have to be careful to manage your juice well. When making an Omori loadout, you either go with an all-out damage set or a tanky debuffing set. Stab works for the latter, while Lucky Slice works for the former. They kind of fill a similar niche, where if you're running a certain emotion it's always reliable, but if you're not it's just fine. Lucky Slice is a priority attack. It will take your attack stat and luck stat, and then multiply it by normal damage, which is 2x if Omori is happy, but 1.5 times otherwise. This also works very well with happy because it will shoot up your crit rate, and while it's less consistent damage overall than stab, it has the priority aspect, and with high enough happiness you're likely to just get a crit regardless. I still think stab is better, but Lucky Slice can fill a similar role in a happy build. I've already gone over Mock's uses, and Trick is very similar. Same damage, but it will drop the speed of Happy Fuzz by 2 stages. They give this to you around the time you fight Sweetheart, so I think you should use this liberally against her. While this may seem like a direct upgrade to Sad Poem, it finds itself being considerably less useful. Painful Truth will make both Omori and the enemy sad. And while yes, making Omori sad is a good thing, making the enemy sad is not really a good thing. Sad is the worst emotion to apply to an enemy. The only benefit the player gets is that enemies are less likely to attack. Especially the higher levels of sad will just prolong fights, and your damage is going to be cut significantly if you're not using a full angry team. It's good for applying an emotion, but just stick to Sad Poem. Definitely the worst of the trio, Shun has the same properties as Mock and Trick. This will always deal 3 times damage and make sad enemies drop their defense by 2 stages. It kind of balances itself out in a way, where it has the strongest debuff, but it's also the least common one you run into. Definitely put this on for Unbred Twins though. This is another excellent skill that's always worth considering. Stare will drop the enemy attack, defense, and speed by 1 stage. This is a great utility option where you don't need to run Mock, Trick, or Shun for the debuff. Really, what build does Stare not fit on? It drops all of the enemy combat stats, and I don't see a reason not to bring it a lot of the time. While it can be viable on its own, I feel as though exploit doesn't really fill any big niche. The best way to describe it would be a jack of all trades, master of none version of the Mach family, where it does 2.5x damage normally, but 3.5x damage if a foe has any emotion. But by the time you get it though, you basically have Slime Girls and Humphrey left, and you would be much more likely to run Mach over this. I'd even argue running Stab or Lucky Slice could be better than running Exploit. There's one weird strategy I came up with that I'll detail later, but it's the only real use I could think of for Exploit. This move's damage output is only rivaled by a few, but you really have to be smart with how you use it. Final Strike will hit once and deal 3 times damage. If you're at a stage 1 emotion, you'll do 4 times damage. If you're at a stage 2 emotion, you'll do 5 times damage. And if you're at a stage 3 emotion, you'll do a whopping 6 times damage. For the cost of 50 juice, this is kind of awkward on Happy Omori, but this is excellent on Omori in True Route. Do not use this move if you're keeping Omori neutral. That's 50 juice down the drain for damage equivalent to a Mach family move. Now, Final Strike would be a perfect move on any Omori moveset if it wasn't for Red Hands is the premier skill of the Hiki route, and definitely for good reason. Red Hands will strike one opponent 4 times for 3x damage. That's just straight up 12 times damage. The only issue with Red Hands is that it can miss if you're happy. However, if you're using Sad, this problem doesn't exist. Happy fans have a much better option coming up anyways. With the proper setup, it doesn't just beat enemies, it more so eviscerates them. I'll just cover both of these moves now. Vertigo and Run and Gun earn their illegal 6 star through their sheer brutality. Like, Red Hands will erase enemies, but this will just straight up delete them from existence. Both of these moves use speed instead of attack to deal damage. And there's a funny little item in this game called the Coffee, which pentupples your speed. Combining these two kills any combat encounter. Vertigo is 3 times your speed, and Run and Gun is 1.5 times your speed. While personally I like Sad Omori more, this is what makes Happy Omori actually an option to use in battle. Let's play some compare and contrast. Omori is much tankier than Kel, meaning he'll live more than 2 hits and doesn't need to be put on life support by Hero. Due to Omori's access to level 3 emotions, his crit rate will be much higher and he'll have a 200% speed bonus. This means you can sometimes match Kel's performance. Vertigo is 45 juice, while Run and Gun is 15. Omori does not have flex, which means his attempts can miss. Omori cannot use the Chicken Ball, which gives Kel a plus 300 to speed for free. Bottom line about these two, they're broken as hell. Vertigo is more consistent in the long run, but Run and Gun is way stronger in the short term. Even though this move does a hefty amount of damage, it's not that great of a utility option. Cripple will deal 3.5 times damage and will always drop speed by 2 stages. That's inherently a lot of speed control, but I find it less valuable than things like attack or defense control. Unless you're using the Contract or Abby's Eye, which I don't know why you would for Abby's Eye, you don't always need to be faster than your opponent. Well, yes, it's nice. It's just a more reliable exploit. At a first glance, Suffocate seems kinda bad. It only does 400 damage flat, and by the time you get it, that's not a lot of damage. But what saves this move is its amazing secondary property. Suffocate will drop the enemy's defense by 2 whole stages. There's no contingencies, there's no weird tricks, it just does that. Which means that your already ridiculously strong attacks just get better. In summary, Omori can use 2 strategies excellently, a Happy set and a Sad set. Happy will reach its true potential in Hiki, but Sad is more consistent throughout the whole game. Both of these play excellently off Omori's massive stockpile of juice he has for some reason, and I've made 2 example sets. Feel free to use these or come up with your own strategies. For Happy, I would recommend Sad Poem, Stare, Suffocate, and Vertigo. Combine this with a wedding ring or headband. If you want Sad Omori, I recommend Sad Poem, Stare, Red Hands, and Suffocate. Combine this with the Cough Mask or Homework/Deep Poetry book. Regardless of what you choose, both are great options. Let's now move on to Aubrey. Fitting the RPG archetype of the fighter, Aubrey has the highest HP overall, highest attack overall, tied defense with Kel, the second worst speed, and the worst juice. All of her skills either do high damage or spread happy. Compared with Omori, Aubrey only has one track I'd recommend you take her on. She also mostly ignores the emotion system, so I just recommend you give her Angry for the highest damage possible. While not as good as Omori's sad poem, I still think Pep Talk is a great option to bring with you. As previously mentioned, being able to set your emotion to anything you ever need is really nice. Happy is probably the best emotion overall. It pairs very nicely with Kel, and also pairs nicely on enemies if you're using sad Omori. Headbutt is the premier strategy of speeding through the early game. You're able to get it right as you return back to the vast forest from Basil's house. The actual quest item is super accessible. Headbutt will deal 2.5 times damage and 3 times damage when angry, but it has the downside of taking recoil up to 20% of your max HP. Don't worry though, Hero can keep you patched up the whole time. As you get deeper and deeper into headspace, the utility of Headbutt starts to wane a little. The recoil on this move is percentage based, which means you can lose a lot of HP, and by the time you're in Sweetheart's Castle or Deepwell, enemies can take that Headbutt and knock back, which means you're probably going to lose that on EXP. Still, it's a very strong option, and it makes the early game a lot easier when a lot of the characters don't have their best skills yet. You'd think a taunt style move would work good on Aubrey, but more often than not, this move will just get you killed. Counter will force all enemies to attack Aubrey for one turn unless they're doing spread damage. She'll also counter with a basic attack every time she's hit. Now, remember when I said that Aubrey's defense is on par with Kel, who dies when you look at him the wrong way? Yeah, I don't see myself really putting the skill on. It's better when enemies have lower attack, but Aubrey tanks much better if you're just taking stray hits, not directing hits at you. Anything that Hero's got basically outclasses this move entirely. We have yet another lackluster Aubrey move. Toro will deal basic attack damage, but the stat it uses is attack plus luck. Doing the math without luck charms, this will net you a maximum of 18 points of damage. Oh yeah, you also make yourself happy. Aubrey doesn't really gain anything from being happy though. She is the worst luck stat and doesn't really need speed. This is just kind of a crappy roll compression of Pep Talk and attack. So, you think Team Spirit would be an objective upgrade to Pep Talk, giving both you and a friend happy, but it comes with some weird caveats. Pep Talk is generally better because it can target anyone on the field, not just a party member. And see my previous section on why Happy doesn't work with Aubrey too well. It's still a good way of setting up Happy with Kel, which is a big deal, but just choose Pep Talk over Team Spirit. Despite low base damage, Power Hit proves itself fairly useful through its extra properties. Power Hit will deal normal damage, but the move will completely bypass enemy defenses and drop it by one stage. This is your first defense control move, and it can help soften up bosses in the mid and late game. The piercing property, while less useful, is still pretty good. I would greatly prefer having the pierce over no pierce, but I think it's a great tool you should consider for your kit. The only reason it's not 5 stars is because there are better options out there. Both Omori and Hero get options for cutting through defenses, and it's not really a unique property Power Hit has. Mood Wrecker I find to be just okay. Now, many people discount this move as quite crappy, seeing as it's normally a very slight power boost overall. But there's something that I think people are forgetting about Mood Wrecker. The move can't miss. So, if say, you put on the Sweetheart's bust, which is super powerful, and the eye patch, which you're guaranteed to get through the story, Mood Wrecker can prove fairly competent in True Route. It also pairs nicely with making Omori sad, it's just consistent damage. If Mood Wrecker worked like Exploit, I'd probably give it 4 stars. But the setup is super committal and it's not too consistent. It can be a fun strat, but be wary about it. While somewhat dubious at times, I think Wind Up Throw is worth considering. Wind Up Throw will hit all enemies for normal damage. If there are 2 enemies, it will do 2.5 times damage and 3 times damage if there's only 1 enemy. This is Aubrey's only spread option, and it can be good during normal fights. The damage perk is also super consistent in boss fights as well. It's just not really a premier choice of mine because there's better spread. Hey, Aubrey gets a better version of Bread Slice. Mash will deal 2.5 times damage and fully restore your juice if you beat an opponent. This move shares all the same problems as Bread Slice, but gaining back all your juice is a better perk. Making it worse than Bread Slice is the fact that you get it at level 23. Unless you grind and beat King Carnivore, I don't see a real place to use this. This is Aubrey's best damage choice, and it's not even that excellent of a move. Beatdown will deal 3 basic attacks on one enemy for 30 juice. Unlike Hackaway, it doesn't spread around on targets, which is good, but the inherent downside of such a move is obvious. Being happy can mean you wasted juice on this attack. It's definitely better than Wind Up Throw, but both have different uses, I'd say. As unfortunate as it is, Aubrey's true purpose in the party is this. Last Resort will deal 4 times Aubrey's current HP amount, but knock her out in the process. Setting it up right can set you up to deal over 2,000 damage in one attack. Last Resort's best use is in the situation where your super attack won't finish off the boss. Like, if you deal 7,500 to Perfect Heart, you could probably finish off that damage range with Aubrey. I would always bring it, but it's not something you should always use. Keep it on you as a last resort. I've had a kind of dismissive tone about Aubrey this whole time, and I hate to admit it, she's probably the worst party member in battle. Her best uses are to do decent chip damage while sponging up big hits with her HP, or going all out with Last Resort. And as for the set, I can only really think of one. Pep Talk, Last Resort, and 2 of the 3 following. Power Hit, Beatdown, Wind Up Throw. As for charms, if you're going all out Last Resort, put on the Flower Crown. If you aren't going for recoil strats, I'd go for Finger or Pretty Bow. If you need something for True Route, Punching Bag or Universal Remote. So, keeping with the theme of RPG archetypes, Kel is the rogue. All of Kel's stats are unreliable to say the least, but to make up for that, he's got the highest juice and highest speed. Fittingly, his preferred emotion is happy. Kel has 2 move types, strange attacks and strange utility. Kel pretty much has an option for every situation, but they often come with odd caveats. I'd argue he also has the most in his diversity of move options. Like Omori and Aubrey, Kel has an emotion setting move. Annoy will apply Angry to a friend or foe. Anything angry means both sides are going to be taking more damage, so you need to be smart with how you play it. Annoy is especially good on Kel because Kel likes to be happy, and Angry is weak to happy. Weirdly enough, Rebound finds itself being kind of viable for a large portion of the game. Despite being a level 4 skill, it's a very consistent spread damage option. Rebound will hit all enemies for 2.5 times damage. And despite Kel's lower attacking stats, Kel will usually go first, giving him the opportunity to just spam this thing out. It being cheap juice-wise is a nice bonus, but Kel doesn't really need that. Oddly enough, this move gets easily outclassed by Kel himself. Pass to Hero deals spread damage to all enemies using Kel and Aubrey's stats. Yeah, I don't get it either, but what matters is that this move is literally free and it also drops attack. Post Sweetheart, I think you don't need Rebound anymore. Alright, so what if God said, Kel, you get to kill everyone for free? That's Flex. Flex will increase your next attack's damage by 2.5 times and make that attack also auto-hit. Is there a situation where you wouldn't want this move? Probably not. At worst, Kel's next attack will be boosted to 3.75 times damage, but it can reach as high as 7.5 times damage, easily. The only time you wouldn't want to flex is if you're using an attack that hits multiple times or multiple targets. So basically just don't use it if you're gonna rebound or ricochet. If you've ever struggled with Omori, just flex. You'll be in a much better position, I promise. Refer to my entry on Vertigo. You could describe this one as quite a curveball. Curveball will cause the foe to feel a random emotion. Any foe hit with an emotion already will take 3 times damage. Now, I don't have to say this, but random things in a game where consistency is important can be bad. The only skill this really pairs with is Omori's Exploit, which is just okay. Random emotions can just kinda cause a headache. I don't think it deserves 1-star tier because it is consistent throughout the whole game, but that consistency kind of sucks. So you know how I said Aubrey's best option was Beatdown? Ricochet is almost exactly the same as that move, but with one exception. The damage variance is 30% instead of 20%, which means you're randomly doing more or less damage than what you're expecting. I'd argue this move isn't exactly good on Kel because it doesn't sync up with his best qualities. Flex only applies to the first hit, which means your other 2 attacks could whiff, you know, since Kel likes being happy and all. I'd say don't bother on Kel as he has much better options. If you're familiar with Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door, this is your classic point swap strategy. In exchange for 25% of your HP, a party member will gain back 40% juice. This move pairs excellently with both Sad Omori and Aubrey, as they both have the HP to spend. Add onto that Hero's Snack Time skill, and the Juice Me downside isn't really a downside. It also has a niche in coming in way before Refresh is an option. And while I think Refresh is strictly better in a lot of cases, Juice Me's uber cheap healing is very useful sometimes. My main issue with Megaphone isn't its effect, because that's actually really strong for a fair price. My real issue with it is that it doesn't really synergize with the team too well. Megaphone will apply Angry to every single party member for 45 juice. Having an emotion is better than not having an emotion, so this is mostly upside, right? Well, not really. Only Aubrey really benefits from being angry, while Omori is fine with it, but Kel and Hero don't want to be angry at all. I can picture some scenarios where Megaphone is very useful, but like I mentioned with Curveball earlier, it's about controlling the chaos. It's a sometimes move, that's the best way to describe it. Do you like gambling? I sure hope you're lucky, because if you aren't, Kel is dead. Can't Catch Me will draw all enemy fire and drop their hit rate by 55% for 2 turns. Where is this useful, you might ask? Well, there are some things that you need 2 turns to set up with. For example, getting to a stage 3 emotion with Omori is always an option. Hero can just spam out debuffing moves, making sure he doesn't have to heal the party in the meantime. And Aubrey can make Kel happy or throw out a couple power hits. Yeah. This move is excellent, but it's on Kel, so it's like attaching a "don't kick me" sign to a piece of paper. As all Omori fans know, Kel likes to die in 2 hits. But that's alright, Kel doesn't fear death. You've just gotta win some coin flips. And like with Aubrey's counter, this is just a bad choice against groups of enemies. Another great option here, Rally will make Kel happy and the rest of the party will recover 30% juice. It will also restore 4 energy. This effectively turns Kel into a juice battery. He'll trade about 1/7 of his for everyone getting a good amount back. The energy also leads to great follow-up options, like Hero healing or Omori dealing a lot of damage. One thing to note, this move syncs up not great with the other juice healing options. Either bring Rally, Refresh, or Juice Me, but not all 3, maybe 2. And just don't bring Tea Time in general, but we'll get to that later. I think this move is too convoluted for its own good. Comeback will make Kel happy, and if he was sad, he'll gain the Flex effect. This is another roll compression move similar to Twirl. The reason Flex is so good is because taking a second turn to charge is almost always better than not, but if you want to use Comeback instead of Flex, it's always going to take 3 turns instead of 2. Unless, of course, you start Kel with the Deep Poetry book or homework, in which case you still gain the 2-turn Flex. But that's only once per battle, and you have to use Omori's Sad Poem to reapply it every time. Doing so will also mean your charm is completely useless. The only fight I can really see this being an option on is Mutant Heart? I don't know. It's not 0 stars because it still applies Flex, which is amazing, but the original is just so much better. I'm gonna say it now, this is the best skill in the game that isn't illegal. When used, Tickle will make all moves on that turn crit. It gives everybody in the party a 1.5 damage multiplier for a turn. Red Hands is now guaranteed 18 times damage, Beatdown is now guaranteed 9 times damage, Tenderize is now guaranteed 6 times damage. The only, and I mean only downside is that Kel can't use this bonus too. But who cares, Omori can be just as strong as Kel in a lot of cases. Use this now. So, Snowball will deal 2.5 times damage and make the enemy sad. If the foe is already sad, it will deal 3 times damage. I'm struggling to even think of a use for this move, to be honest. Sad is probably the worst emotion to apply to enemies, and the only major boss that uses sad consistently is the Unbred Twins. Oh wait, you fight the Unbred Twins before you can even get this move. So its only real usage in bosses is against Space X Husband. And I guess if you want to do angry versus sad stuff you could, but just use Run and Gun. Or really, any of Kel's better options, even Curveball would probably be better. There's no use for this move currently. Just don't use it, it's making your set worse if you do. Kel's greatest advantage is his high speed stat. He's got the skills to either be a powerful setup attacker or a tricky support character. His diversity and reliability is shocking, there are just so many good skills here. I had a hard time coming up with specific sets, but here's an attempt. For crazy attacker Kel, you want Annoy, Flex, Run and Gun, and any other skill that looks good to you. I personally like Rally or Tickle, but whatever suits the situation really. For the charm, use the Rabbit's Foot or Headband. For a utility-based Kel, I would recommend Annoy, Flex, Rally, and Tickle. Juice Me can be replaced for Rally, and Can't Catch Me can be swapped in as desired. Stick with the Rabbit's Foot, Headband, or Rose Hair Clip. Finishing our RPG team is Hero, the Cleric. You might have noticed that Hero gets a lot of special mention in a lot of these different strategies. And that's because Hero serves as the glue that keeps the team together. His stats are all middling, with his attack and speed being the absolute lowest of the whole party. However, he makes up for this with his defensive and healing properties. Hero's just jam-packed with ridiculously strong healing options that can get the team back up and running in no time. He has like one attacking option, so use him to patch up the cracks in your team's defensive holes. So yeah, remember when I just said that Hero could get any party member up and running easily? This is why. Cook will heal 75% HP for 10 juice. I can't not think of a reason to bring it. And what more is there to say? It's a 75% heal. Massage will set a friend or foe back to a neutral emotion. So, I can barely even think of a reason your party members shouldn't have emotions unless you just haven't set them yet. If your enemy has one that beats yours, just counterpick by using Kel, Aubrey, or Omori. Better yet, just use an item to do it. Or, even better, just change your enemy's emotions to be weak to yours. There's only one case I can see this skill being used properly. If your foe has high attack and is angry, it could probably make you survive a blow. Let's step back for a second. I want to talk about emotion items real quick. The Present, Sparkler, and Poetry Book all set emotions without needing to use juice or a move slot. So why did I rate the emotion setting skills so high then? Well, their use is so common that it's just a factor of convenience. You get them super early and they're super cheap, so I just don't know why you wouldn't use them. With Massage, the use cases are so uncommon it can functionally be replaced by the Dandelion item. Carrying approximately 10 dandelions should be enough to get you through the whole game. Massage offers you nothing. One of the more passable options for a redirection in my opinion. Charm will draw one enemy fire to Hero for one turn. Unlike Kel and Aubrey though, Hero actually has the stats to back up making such a decision. It can be good for protecting Kel or Aubrey while another character uses an item, but I wouldn't say it's useful on every Hero moveset. You do get this for very cheap, so if you're trying to conserve as much juice as possible for a big juice sink skill, Charm isn't a bad choice at all. While in some situations it's worse than Cook, Snack Time is an excellent option for higher difficulty fights. The move heals 40% HP for every single party member. As you progress, enemies will get better and better spread damage options. This can leave you in a dire situation, and having Hero to spam out Snack Time will function as him doing life support on the whole team. Getting into a cycle of getting hit and using Snack Time can have the party squeeze out a few extra 1,000 damage. Just be sure to be mindful of enemy crits. I wouldn't say Cook and Snack Time are diametrically opposed to each other either, you could run both of them very effectively. This move is quite straightforward. Smile will go first and then reduce an enemy's attack by one stage. For the time you get it, it's a very powerful defensive tool. Unleashing power hits from Aubrey and smiles from Hero can really soften an enemy up, and while the smile variations Hero gets later can have weird clauses to them, this one's cheap and reliable. I'm also not giving this 5 stars because it's not applicable in every situation. Like, by the time you get Stare, you're probably not putting Smile on Hero. Fast Food will act first and heal 40% of one friend's HP. Utilizing this correctly can be hard, but it makes for another great tool in certain circumstances. If you need to rapidly patch up a friend's health before a big attack, this is very useful. Unlike the other healing options though, this one is a little limited. For example, priority healing on a super slow enemy like Humphrey has no real use. Knowledge is what gives Fast Food its versatility. If you know how fast an enemy is, you can play around that factor. It also doesn't replace Cook or Fast Food by any sense of the word. Use it as needed, and don't be afraid to experiment with your different healing options. Homemade Jam will heal a friend that is toast for 70% HP. This is a great insurance option in my opinion. While it's less versatile than the Life Jam item, if you can use it on Hero, you're probably fine. It's reliable and consistent healing that kind of gets less useful the deeper you get into the game. By the time Hero gets all reliable in Hiki route, all healing items gain a bonus to HP and juice healing. Even with just the bread phones, which are true route accessible, the Life Jam item just outpaces homemade jam in a lot of cases. It's got its uses, especially if you try to conserve Life Jam for the end of the game, but it drops off in viability for sure. With a hint of lemon and a sprinkle of sugar, Tea Time will restore 30% HP and 20% juice. This skill would just be okay. If it weren't for the fact that Kel gets Juice Me in the exact same dungeon as Tea Time. Juice Me is just strictly better, so long as you don't mind some extra damage on you. I would much rather prefer the juice healing or the HP healing over both at the same time. If this video has taught you anything, it's that roll compression in Omori is bad. Except the one time it wasn't. Like, it's not unusable, it provides a decent amount of juice, but there's just way better options on Kel and even Hero himself. Okay, so Captivate is literally Charm, but it affects all enemies instead of just one enemy. If you're facing multiple enemies and want to use this, use Captivate. If you're facing a single enemy and want to use this, use Charm. They're the same move. Spicy Food is an attack that will deal basic damage and make the foe angry. So this is kind of a weird move to give 3 stars to, as I've harped on a lot of roll compression stuff in the past, but here I think the roll compression is actually really interesting. If your only goal with Kel's Annoy is to make the enemy angry, you could theoretically ditch it for an extra move slot on Kel. Of course, Hero loses some versatility in the process, but Hero has a little more flexible movesets than Kel. Personally, I think Annoy is still better on Kel, but if you never intend to make your friends angry, this can prove pretty effective. So yeah, speaking of roll compression, Hero has a lot of weird moves like that. I'm gonna go kinda quick with them. Enchant is Charm, but it also applies Happy to the target. Very similarly to Spicy Food, if you're only using Pep Talk to make the enemy happy, this can be a suitable replacement. But Happy is a way more versatile emotion than Angry, so you're kind of losing a lot of options by replacing it. I wouldn't bother, but if you really need it for that purpose, you can use Enchant. This one is a weird middle ground between Snack Time and Cook. So Hero and one friend of your choice will recover 50% HP each. Healing for half health is not bad at all, and it's still more objective healing than something like Cook, but the only time I really think this is useful is if you're really liberally using the redirect skills with Hero. And like I mean somewhat liberally, where you're using it often enough where you're gonna be down 50% HP, but also not often enough to where another friend will be down 50% HP. My point is that Snack Time is more consistent than it. It can get the job done, of course. It's 50% healing, which is really good, but it's just outclassed. Refresh recovers 50% of a friend's juice. Strictly speaking, this move will recover the most juice for one person. Similar to Cook and Snack Time, Refresh and Rally have their own use cases where they're not really better than each other, they're just useful in different situations. I prefer to just run one, but you could run both if you so desire. If you want to use any of Hero's redirect moves, use this one. Mesmerize will redirect all enemy attacks to Hero for 1 turn and reduce the damage he takes by 50%. I've covered this exact archetype a lot today, so let me just be brief with it. If you need 2 turns, use Can't Catch Me. If you need 1 turn, use Mesmerize. Probably don't use both, as it can be a little bit of a wasted move slot. This one's just lame. Dazzle will act first, make all enemies happy, and drop their attack by 1 stage. I just don't find myself needing a move that makes all enemies happy, but I guess Dazzle has the property of dropping all enemy attacks by 1 stage, which is unique to it. So if you really need a move of that caliber, you can use it, but it's just another lame roll compression move. In terms of attacking moves, this is actually one of the better ones. Tenderize will deal 4 times damage and drop the foe's defense by 1 stage. This move is very good, but it's on Hero. If this was on Aubrey, it would be an S tier, but it's not. His lackluster attack stat holds it back from being anything really special. And of course, since this move is Hiki exclusive, it's contending directly with Suffocate. There is a better defense control move on Hero, and I don't think Tenderize is too useful, but it's not bad if you want to use it. Very simply, Gatorade will increase the whole party's defense by 1 stage. Its usefulness is as good as its simplicity. A party-wide defense increase is great, especially for those tough fights. Hero can just spam this out whenever he has a free turn. Using Hero well is incredibly important for your team's success. He can serve as the metaphorical backbone, ensuring your attackers stay fully healed and buffed up while chipping away at enemy defenses. The set I would recommend is Cook, Snack Time, Gatorade, and one of the many other solid move choices he has. Refresh is always good to keep on the table, but Smile and Mesmerize are also there. For charms, I recommend the Chef's Hat, the Paper Bag, and the Top Hat. This video should hopefully give you an idea on how to maximize the power of your skills in Omori. For a quick reference on how these all stack up, I made a simple tier list. Each of the letters is a different star rating. And if there are any fun strategies I didn't mention in this video, make sure to leave them in the comments. I really like to read them. If you want more analytical content like this, then make sure to hit like and subscribe as well. We just hit 1,000 subs not too long ago, which means that I've started writing a massive Omori review. If you like this video, you'll probably like that one as well. Thank you for watching, I've been Lexi, I'll see you later.